Have you ever wanted to give a really great speech, but you didn't know how? You weren't quite sure, what is it? I mean, some speeches you just heard and you thought, wow, that's just great. And other speeches you heard and you thought, there's something missing here. But I don't know what it is. This one's great. This one's not really there. What is it that makes it happen? Well, if you ever wondered that, I wanted the same thing. And that's how I got involved with Toastmasters. I thought, well, Toastmasters is a place that people do speeches, so somebody here probably is going to be good at it. So I went to Toastmasters, started doing speeches. I got better at speeches, but never really quite did anything great. And I thought, I just got to build this up, got to work on it. And I kind of got frustrated and down a little bit and thought maybe I should just quit and forget about the whole thing. But I kept at it. And then one day, I met Scott. And Scott was a tall guy, brown hair. And he'd been a Toastmaster for a long time. And he'd heard about something he called the 3 Ps. So I said, Scott, I want to become a better speaker. I want to become really a great speaker. He says, Tim, well, you can do it, but you have to understand the 3 Ps. I said, what do you mean 3 Ps? What are you talking about? Scott explained to me. The 3 Ps, what they are, the nature they are, how they work, and how they transform and build up your speech. And at first it was a challenge. Definitely was a challenge. But then over time, got better. First thing was mastering that first P. And that was a challenge. Just to make sure that first P happened. And I, like most people, not really comfortable with that. Not really comfortable with that first P at all. And how it works. But once I started to do it, once I started to actually use that, it kind of unlocked something in me. And I found myself becoming stronger, firmer, more in charge on stage, just more assertive, stronger, just feeling better about what I did. Afterwards I thought, yeah, that worked. That really worked. And that was just with 1 P. Then I started adding another P. I thought, whoa, that's even better. Once you get to the second P, things just start to jump up. You like bump things up a notch. It's like, here's where you were, and boop, there's where you are now. Wow. What a transformation that made. And it was simple. It's a simple little change to make. And it's just a matter of being aware of it, thinking about it, always thinking about always being aware of it. How can I insert that second P to make that work? And then I thought, this is going pretty well. Great. And then finally, I inserted that third P. That third P. And I realized that, wow, Scott really had something here. Because Scott was doing something different from all the other Toastmasters. Scott was approaching things a completely different way. The Toastmasters were kind of going over here with most speakers. Scott, with his 3 P principle, had really gotten a hold of something. It was different. It was new. It was unusual. I started understanding what that was and how that worked with that third P. So today you're going to find out about those 3 Ps, how they work, why they work. Now, way you can use one of them and you'll get good results. You start using one, you'll get good results, you'll feel stronger, firmer up there, you'll just set a better sense of, yeah, this is going okay. There's just something, once you unleash that first P in the audience, it's like, this is really going okay. You can get the second one. That really starts things going even better. It's a simple thing to do, simple change to make. But once you start making that and really thinking about it and think, how can I add the second P in there? Then things start to take off. When you get to the third P, that's the game changer. That's the game changer. All of a sudden you're doing things in a whole different sort of a way, and all of that really, really will make your speeches take off. So if you want to get your speeches really great speeches, it all begins with understanding what the basis of great speeches are. And as I learned from Scott, great speeches begin with the 3 Ps. As mentioned, the first P is something people are a little bit reluctant about. Most speakers have a little bit of reluctance about the first P and applying it, and don't really want to do it. So basically, they kind of hold back and say, okay, well, kind of going to talk around it, I'll mention other things, but I really don't want to go there because, frankly, it's nobody else's business, it's something I really got to do myself, and it's really for me. That's something for me. It's not for other people to get involved with, to be aware of. That importance of the first P. But once you get into that first P and you start to really let go and really explore how that P can work, it's a very powerful principle. And it's simple to do, but you have to open up. Because the first P is all about getting personal. Personal. It's tempting when you're a speaker to go up there and kind of generalize. Yeah, some people were doing this and some people were doing that and these sort of things were going on. But not really going to involve the audience. Because the audience doesn't live in a general world. They live in a world of very specific things that happen to them. And they're thinking, well, if you can't tell me what's going on in your life, why should I open up mine to you? Because basically, if you ever go out there on stage in front of an audience, you're asking them to open up their life. You're asking them to make some sort of a situation with their life. You're saying something to them. Do something, be something, whatever it is. And if you aren't willing to open up your life, why should they open up theirs? It's that simple. Just that simple. So if you can be personal, it can really be effective. You think back at the very beginning. Told a story about me going to Toastmasters, how that changed things, and then meeting Scott, how Scott put me on a different sort of a path. It was a personal story. I noticed that I didn't climb Mount Everest. I didn't come out and start winning the Olympics. In fact, there's nothing really extraordinary about it, and that's the point. A personal story is there to connect with the audience. The idea of a personal story is, hey, I'm like you. I'm like you. It's really important to make that personal story so you're similar to the audience. That's why you tell a personal story. If you're a movie star, then you want to tell a personal story about how really you have the same sort of problems everybody else does. You don't want to talk about, well, I couldn't figure out whether I was going to stay in my multi-million-dollar Florida mansion or my multi-million-dollar California mansion. You know how that is. I was kind of torn between the two mansions. Not going to connect with the audience. That's not the sort of personal you need out there. You need personal that's similar. And it's tempting. As a speaker, you get up there, hey, I want to be special. I want to be special. I want to tell everybody how special and how great I am. Well, okay. But if you're so great, then we're down here and you're way up there. How are you going to connect us? How are you going to connect to us? How does a God connect to the subjects? Well, they worship me. It's not enough. Just not enough. And frankly, audiences don't like to think they're subjects of the speaker. The speaker comes out and says, "Thank you for gathering to worship me today." Audience is not going to be amused or happy about that at all. But if you make it personal, if you make it similar, you start out by saying something that basically says, hey, I'm like you. I'm like you. You've got these sort of challenges and problems. Believe me, I did too. That lays everything in the same ground. So personal is the first P. That's a great start. Just being personal. That's fine. But personal by itself isn't going to be enough. In order for personal to work, you've got to put something else in it. Personal's got to be pumped up. You've got to pump up the personal. And to pump up the personal, you've got to start using that second P. This is where the second P gets involved. Personal is a start, it's a beginning. But then you start moving into that next level. You start saying, okay, personal good, but now I'm going to take it to a whole nother level. When you do that, you get into that second P. Personal is very important, no question about it. But personal by itself isn't going to really connect and really get that audience going. Not enough. It's just not enough. You need more than that. And you can get an idea of the second P and the power of the second P if you imagine two stories. Just imagine one story where you come in and you say, well, I didn't know how to speak and decided I was going to go to Toastmasters. There's a guy there, Scott. And Scott was this tall guy, brown hair, and he said to me, Tim, I hear you want to become a great speaker. You got to use the 3 Ps. It's going to help you. Oh, really? Yeah, it's going to help me a lot. It's good stuff. Oh, okay. Yeah, fine. Great, whatever. Not too interesting, right? In fact, right now you might be just trying to thinking, oof, man, just move past that. That's boring. That's boring. Right? Because it's missing the second P. Passion. Passion. Hey, if you don't care about it, why should the audience care about it? If you aren't pumped up, excited, really ready to go, why should the audience care? Why should it matter to them? So if you're going to tell your personal story, make sure it's a passionate one. Make sure you tell it with passion. I wanted to become a better speaker. So I decided I was going to go to Toastmasters because that's where it's going to all start. They do a lot of speaking there. Try to pump it up with passion. Now, notice, you don't want to go over the top. You say, I want to be a better speaker! I went to Toastmasters! It was the greatest experience of my life! Everybody should go! Don't go there. Really, don't be that guy. Because all the audience is thinking about that guy is, oh man, that person is having some sort of mental problem, I think. I'm glad I sat in the back row because he's screaming really loudly and spitting on everybody in the first row. No good. You don't want to go there. That's not passion, that's insanity. There may be a place for insanity, but in general on the stage, not too much unless you're going to be a rant comic, and that's a whole nother story. No, passion. And passion is normal. Just talk about something you care about. Look, you find your passion, you find your speech. It's another thing Scott taught me. You find your passion, you find your speech. That's simple. If you're automatically, naturally passionate about something, something that just keeps on going and you just got to talk about it, hey, you're already there. You're already there talking. All you got to do is take that personal story and just have the same passion talking about it you have talking about your subject. Because if you imagine yourself, and you might be thinking, wait a minute, Tim, how do I figure out what I'm passionate about? How do I know what I'm passionate about? And here's the way kind of Scott explained it to me. Maybe it can help you. Just imagine you're at a party. Okay? You're at a party. You've been to parties before? Okay, good. Been at a party, everything's kind of going along, and someone talks about something you like. You really like that subject. You want to keep talking about it. So you just start talking and talking. You're passionate about it. You're excited about it. And then this always happens, somebody changes the subject, and that kind of group of people talking about the thing goes away. But you still want to talk about that subject. So, start talking with somebody else. Anybody you can find at the party talking about that subject. You talk about the subject for hours. Finally, later on, the party is winding down. People are leaving, going out to their cars. You follow them out to their cars, still talking about that subject. They're getting into their cars. You're talking to them about their subject. And finally, as they're driving away in their cars, you're yelling your last thoughts on that subject. Because you still really want to talk about that subject. Whatever subject you're now thinking of, that's your passion. It's that simple. Find something you care about, something you're excited about, and it's going to come out. Now, personal and passion are very important. No question about that. But they won't work all by themselves. To have a really great talk, a great talk that gets people involved, gets people interested in, there has to be one more element there. There has to be that third P. Now, the third P is something that most speakers kind of forget about. And they can get really personal and really passionate and they leave out the third P. And the audience is sitting there saying, why am I here? What is the point of me listening to this person up there going on and on about this? It makes no sense, a complete waste of time. Man, good thing I got that new iPhone 6. Whew! Test that baby out. Oh, that's looking good there, yeah. Ooh, man, iOS 8, great stuff. All because that third P is missing. And the third P, the thing that really transforms it in terms of good speech into a great speech, is being polar. Polar. And you might be thinking, Tim, what the heck is polar? What do you mean about this? Some sort of disease? Some sort of mental problem? No, it's not what I mean. Not the polar I'm talking about. Simply being polar. Think of the world. There's a North Pole and a South Pole, right? Not getting too advanced for people? Okay. So if you imagine everybody is at the North Pole, just picture yourself being at the South Pole. If everybody's at the South Pole, you'd be at the North Pole. And the idea is simply you want to do something different. If you got a speech about how everybody should be doing what they're already doing, you have a really bad speech. Go out there, keep on doing what you're doing. You're doing just great. Well, they're already doing it. Doesn't help them, doesn't change them, doesn't transform them. Ideally, a speech should be a transformation. When you listen to a great speech, you should start one way and come out the other way transformed. Not the way it works? You hear a great speech, aren't you somehow different having heard that speech? Aren't you transformed just by the process of hearing the speech? All of a sudden you've got new thoughts, new ideas, new energy you never had before because now you've got this new speech. It just changes the way you look at things. That's what being polar is all about. So notice in that talk at the very beginning, the whole point was that I wanted to be a great speech. Now, as one of the Toastmasters, they were all doing this, but then Scott told me, hey, Tim, here's something different to do. Boom. Doing something different. Think about Apple. Apple. So successful because they said, we think different. They didn't say, we think the same. Buy our stuff. We think the same as everybody else. Wouldn't work. Would not work. Would not sell anything. In fact, think different and we think different have become a huge, huge phrase for Apple. Think different. That's what Apple's all about. People were going out there getting CDs and records, and Apple said, okay, why don't we digitize all that stuff and put it in your pocket? That's different. People said, why do we need to do that? Well, here's why. Steve Jobs explained it. He was polar. He was polar. Everybody's thinking, okay, we got these records, we got these CDs, they're going to be over here. He says, no, be over here. Same thing in my talk. Very beginning, that story. Okay, here are the Toastmasters over here trying to create great speeches, not doing it, but here's Scott with a different idea. A different way to do it, these 3 Ps. And that changed things, started me thinking differently. So it's about being polar. Personal is great, wonderful to be personal. No problem. And it's great to have passion, be excited about things. Of course you care about it. If this subject ever came up at some sort of a party, you just want to keep talking and talking about it. You're naturally passionate about this subject, whatever it is for you. Don't forget to be polar. If you're really passionate about the new great iPhone 6, well, great, but a lot of people are passionate about that too. It's not going to transform. It's not going to make a difference. But if you're passionate about a new technology, doing something completely different from everybody else, a new Apple that could be, a new Apple in the works, that makes an interesting speech. So passion is the 3rd P. As a speaker, you hear great speeches. A lot. You go on YouTube maybe and start checking out those speeches. Oh, great speeches of the world, great speeches here, list of great speeches. You start hearing them and say, yeah, those are great speeches. But you might have wondered, what makes them so great? Why are they great? Why do they work so well? Keeping the 3 Ps in mind can help you understand that. First of all, most likely they're personal. In some way or another, they're personal. They have some sort of personal story. Maybe of the speaker, maybe of something the speaker knows, or has heard about, or refers to. There's going to be some sort of personal level to it. And it's going to be a personal level you connect on. A personal level that makes yourself, the speaker, or the person they're talking about, similar to you in some way. So you think, yeah, I get that. I understand that. Personal is incredibly powerful to connect. To connect with that audience. Make it personal about something that's similar to the audience. The audience says, okay, I get that. All right, we're all there. Fine, we're on the same sort of level. Wonderful. With the personal by itself is not going to help you unless you add in the passion. The passion. It has to be an excitement. It has to be a natural passion about it. If you're talking about something and you really don't care about it, just stop talking about it now. And if your job requires you to talk about it all the time, and you can find a new job, maybe it's time to start looking for one of those. Because you can't fake passion. If you're passionate about it, if you're excited about it, it's going to come out. It's just going to come ripping out of you, roaring out of you, like at a party, where suddenly that topic comes up. You're like, oh, wow. And like a beautiful odor, like a beautiful scent, wafting along the breezes, you're like, ah, what a beautiful topic. I love talking about this. And boom, you're off to the races. That's passion. That's excitement. It makes you going. Makes you get going, makes you stay going, makes you just keep on rolling along. That passion, that interest, that excitement of what you're talking about. About the passion, well, you know, hey, it's all right, blah, 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 who cares? You don't care. Why should your audience care? If you don't care, your audience won't care. And you can't pretend you care. You have to actually care. That's passion. Really caring a lot about that subject you're talking about. But even to get the personal and the passion together, it's not enough. It's not quite enough. Now you need to be polar. You need to be polar. There's got to be some reason people want to listen to you. There's got to be some reason people say, yeah, that guy, definitely, got a different idea, a whole different approach. Listen to him, you'll find out something you never thought about before. You're going to learn something. Polar. Very important. Because if you're giving a speech that says, hey, that stuff you're already doing, just keep on doing that. You've got a really boring speech. So if you're passionate about chess, talk to people who don't like chess. Be polar. Explain why chess is a great thing and try to convert them over. It's the same reason why, talking about Apple again, why Apple people go to Microsoft people. They want to be polar. If they talk a bunch of Apple people, they're like everybody else. They aren't different. But they go to Microsoft people and say, hey, Apple's got some great stuff here. Come on, convert yourself. There you go. If you're an iPhone 6 passionate person, start talking to people who have the new Microsoft phone. Try to get them to go to the iPhone 6. It all has to do with finding the place where you're polar, where you're different, where you've got a different idea, a new idea that can help people develop, build, and grow. You get out there and want to be a speaker, and you want to do public speaking, at whatever level it is. Whether it's the most basic level of simply going to Toastmasters and giving a few talks, or it's getting on a world stage and start really addressing people and just transforming things, you've got to have a message that people are going to really buy into, make sense to them. It's really going to touch them. The 3 Ps can put you on the right track. Make it personal. Somewhere along the line, have it personal. Something about you or somebody you know. Ideally about you, if you can, somebody you know. Make it passionate. Find something you believe in, you really strongly believe in. Get going on it. And make it polar. Think different. Do different. Keep in mind the 3 Ps. Keep working on those 3 Ps, and you will have a great speech.